I followed what Lance Miller, I follow him so much. He's the world champion of public speaking, I think, from the 90s, 91 or so. He says, write your script, read it, like know it, and then throw it away. Right? And that's what I did.
You are in for a special treat. My man Damilare is in the building. He is a TEDx speaker, fitness instructor, does all of the things. He's about to drop some gems on us and inspire us. How you feeling, my brother?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you, Robin? Glad to be here.
Man, I am too blessed to be stressed. And I want to say one thing. You are actually the first male TEDx speaker that we're interviewing. So I'm honored to have the first brother up in here with me. So I've been hanging out with all of our female TEDx speakers, which has been great, but it's really cool to finally connect with one of my guys.
Ooh, yes. Well, hi. Glad to be here as well with you, brother.
All right, cool. So why don't we just jump right in? I'm really curious to know about your origin story as it pertains to your TEDx journey. I know I had an opportunity to listen to your talk. I know you're from Nigeria, and I want to just hear a little bit about what made you want to do a TEDx talk.
Absolutely. So one of the things that is very particular about TEDx is an idea worth sharing, right? And so based on my life experience, I've gathered so many ideas. I felt like, okay, at what point do you share what? Now, you just said it. I'm from Nigeria, and actually, particularly, I'm from Southwest Nigeria. So I'm from the Yoruba tribe. And in my country, in my culture, in my ethnic group, music and dancing is a big part of everything we do, right? So celebrations. And when I say celebrations, it's everything. When a child is born, we play music and dance. When an adult or an elderly passes on to the afterlife, we play music and dance. So when you look at that as a part of my origin, even in religious setting, in social setting, it created some kind of reflective experience for me that, okay, so there must be something to this movement beyond just a celebration. Now, as I grew through the different experiences, I enjoyed dancing and particularly did a master's in dance knowledge, practice, and heritage with a program called Currimundus. So just think of it like the anthropology of dance, right? It went deeper into how dance plays a role in community settings, bringing communities together, healing, the embodied experience, dance as politics, dance as identity. I'm like, all right, we've got to be talking about this, right? Like everybody looks at dance mostly from the entertainment perspective, but you hardly hear it in a much more holistic perspective. So I was passionate about sharing that, and what better stage than the TEDx stage to share that?
Thank you for sharing that. When you said that, it kind of hit home for me because I'm from a Caribbean background. You know, my parents are from Trinidad and Tobago, and dance was a big part of my upbringing. But as I got older, I found myself maybe moving further away from dance, almost like a little embarrassed, to be honest. Like, oh, you gonna dance? Like, I'm not dancing. I'm not a dancer. Talk to me about that, about like the therapeutic aspect of dancing. Because for me, like when I move and I dance, I always feel good. Like afterwards, I always feel good. Talk to me about some of the therapeutic aspects of dance.
Absolutely. So when we go back into history, we see how Western civilization created the distance between the mind and body, right? It centered a lot of cognitive experiences versus the bodily expressions. And so that's why many people feel like, oh, dancing is this or dancing is that. I don't want to move my body. However, it's a disservice to us because it disconnects our whole essence, right? And so when I say emotion, it's basically energy in motion. And that motion is the movement of our body. And so the therapeutic experience of dancing is being able to move that energy through our body. And it's becoming much more centered these days when you look at the research in somatics and neuroscience of how every experience we have that is emotionally charged creates some kind of, think about it like data, right? Stores of data in our body, right? In our nervous system. Now, when we move, we have an opportunity to process that. When we don't, it becomes stock energy that shows up in all sorts of things, right? And I was given an example this morning in the conversation, like tightness in the stomach. Yeah, that's anxiety in some way, right? Heaviness in the chest, that may be grief. Tightness in the shoulder, right? That's stress. And so being able to just release through motion, exactly, I know. Yes.
Get loose. I'm about to start popping and locking up in here.
Right. And so that's exactly the therapeutic essence to dance. I'll go further by saying we don't want to box dance into the traditional forms or the fixed forms of dance, right? Like the ballet, the tap, the jazz, the salsa, the tap dancing, all of that. No, we want to look at dance from a more holistic perspective, which is movement, right? Movement in the body. In fact, joyful movement, right? Rhythmic movement. This is what really helps us shift that energy through the body.
Very nice, very nice. So let's get into some of the more technical aspects of your journey as a TEDx speaker. Many of our guests already have shared that they hired coaches to help support them with their application process. Some of them applied multiple times before being selected. Some got asked to come and speak. What was your story in terms of application, like you applying for TEDx? And just talk to me a little bit about the selection process.
Absolutely. So I came into TEDx as an accomplished speaker, right? Someone who has stood up in front of people to do trainings, to do speaking. So that nerves or fear of public speaking, so to say, that I see common with most people wasn't necessarily present for me. For me, it was more of a journey of a stage to share my idea, to share a transformative knowledge that could continue to impact people. So one of the things that were important to me was location, right? So I went to the TEDx website and looked at the list of all the events for the year, wherever they could be, right? And so I was looking at locations that I could possibly travel to should I be selected. So that was my first criteria, right? And I shortlisted to about 6, right? In fact, I picked one in France. Yes, in Clermont-Ferrand, France.
Parlez français.
Oui, je parle français, mais un petit peu, mais je parle français. Yeah, that's it.
Moi, un petit peu en français, en fait. Habitat en français pour 12 ans.
Ah, d'accord, c'est bon, très bon, très bon. Mais j'habite en France pour 9 mois à Clermont-Ferrand. Alors, j'apprends la langue française parce que j'étudie en France, je parle français, conversation, c'est la marche, c'est le restaurant. Alors, je parle beaucoup de français dans France. There you go.
C'est trop cool, mec. That's the première fois pour parler français on les podcasts.
Alors. C'est l'épisode premier. Yeah, so this is the premiere episode for everything. For speaking French,
everything.
Male speaker,
dancing.
Yeah,
dancing. That's the first dance moves I busted out. That's
yes. So anyway, I picked Clermont-Ferrand, France because actually I had lived there for about 10 months back in 2014. So it would have been an opportunity to also go back to see friends had I been, chosen to speak there. I picked Bowling Green, Ohio, because I went to grad school there. So I kind of picked a few locations where strategically I would like to travel to. One. The second thing for me that was important is each TEDx event that I've seen has a theme, right? And so I wanted to make sure that the idea that I was wanting to share on stage aligned with the theme of the event, right? And so could I spin how dance and movement will be important for climate change? Yes. Could I spin how dance and movement could be important for AI and movement, and technology? Yes. However, I wanted something that resonated, the closest so that it increased my chances of being selected. And I ended up speaking at TEDxBGSU, which is in Bowling Green, Ohio. And the theme of their event was for the public good, right? And so I was able to set the stage that movement, in fact, daily movement enhances our mood, our productivity, our energy, and enhances our interaction. So basically, when you feel good, you do good, right? And when you do good, it's for the public good. Basically, that was my through line, right? So again, recap. Location was important to me in terms of places I was applying. Second was also the theme of the event, and third is the timing. So most events are already choosing their speakers 6 months ahead of time, right? Maybe a few 3 months ahead. So to speak in 2024, I was looking at this list in 2023, right? So a year ahead, so that I had enough time to research, choose the venues or the event, and then apply. So I'll stop with that, and we could go more if you have any specific questions about that journey.
That's good. That's good. Just to recap, you gave me a nice 3-step process. You said that the location was important because you were strategically applying. I think that's a nugget. So write that down, folks. Strategic applications. I think that's something that some of the folks that have been on the show recommend just applying any and everywhere, which can be a strategy as well. But I love the idea of being strategic in terms of the locations that you have some sort of connection or roots. Question, was the Bowling Green the same Bowling Green school you went to?
Correct.
So that's another
Bowling Green,
nugget.
yes, that's another nugget for sure. Yes. And in particular, this came up to me because while I was looking at the different TEDx events and the application pages, TEDx Jacksonville, for example, here in Florida, requires that you have a connection to the city of Jacksonville, right? So you were somewhat involved in the community, right? I found some other TEDx events that were particular to enhancing the feminine voice, right? So it was a TEDx women's event. Now, I had no business applying to such an event. Did I have an idea what sharing? Yes. However, I also saw that this event was very particular about what they were looking for. And so that's important.
Yep. And I'm actually in the process of applying for a location that has very similar requirements. So my first TEDx talk was here in the Atlanta area where I live. So it made sense, right? But for this other chapter, I have some relationships with some of the previous speakers, and I know because not all TEDx events are the same level of
Correct.
professionalism, right?
Correct. Yes.
You might have one that gets approved and it's done like with a cardboard sign TEDx, right? Which is okay. The idea is still the idea, but for me, what I'm trying to do is really align with very high quality TEDx events, align myself with top of the line organizations. With that said, I find that because they have that barrier, I'm trying to find creative ways to, break through. So I might not live there, but can my story or can my message for this talk align somehow with their community? So I love that we're having the conversation about that. So, okay, so now you talked a little bit about your steps in actually applying. You've been selected. Right. Now you have to fine-tune a message that it sounds like you already had. Talk to me about refining your message and then actually rehearsing. What was your day-to-day in terms of rehearsals?
Great. So I'm a member of Toastmasters. I had been in Toastmasters for about 2 years. So I was already going every week practicing public speaking, right? So we will have like speaking presentations. We have what we call table topics, which is basically impromptu speech. So I had, so to say, my sandbox where I could go and practice my speaking. For someone who doesn't have an organization like that near them or they have not joined, family and friends, right? Record yourself on Zoom. So my process was this. I followed what Lance Miller, I follow him so much. He's the world champion of public speaking, I think, from the 90s, 91 or so. He says, write your script, read it, like know it, and then throw it away. Right? And that's what I did. So I wrote my speech so that I had an organization of my ideas, right? Then I learned it, read it over again, practicing it so that I know the speech, not just by heart, but in my body, right? The flow of it. Then I rehearsed in front of the camera, recorded myself saying this speech. I watched it back, took notes of different things I could do. Then I presented it live in my local Toastmasters club, got additional feedback, right? So one of the things I loved about being a member of Toastmasters is we have what is called evaluators, right? So when you give your speech, people are assigned as evaluators to give you feedback. And the feedback ranges from choice of words, the speed of your speech, tonal clarity, enunciation, body gestures, like all those little things that helps you enhance your message, right? So I got the feedback on that from watching myself in the video and also from my Toastmasters colleagues. Then I went back again to incorporate that feedback, right? And recorded myself again doing this. Now I got to tell you this. It depends on the TEDx event. My TEDx event also had a rehearsal opportunity available, right? Where you could come in a few weeks before the event to walk the stage, record yourself, kind of feel the vibe of the place. So that was one option. And then the day before the event, we did the rehearsal as well. So I think if there's any takeaway to summarize it, is repetition, improvement, repetition, right? So repetition, feedback, improvement, repetition. So practice over and over again, get the feedback, incorporate the feedback, practice again, so that when you go on stage, you know your speech, not just by head, but in your body.
Yes, yes. I've heard don't just memorize, internalize. And
Yeah.
that was for me very similar. I wrote it, then I like read it, listened to it. I like recorded it and then I listened to it. But I had gotten so immersed in it that I just memorized it. It was like because I had internalized it so much. Now, don't get me wrong. There would be some times where I would say, mom or mommy, right? So that
Right.
it might change depending on the flow. But I love the actual improvement piece, and that's one thing for me because I come from a hip hop background. So a lot of my stuff is like you don't share it until it's done, right? So a part of me was I didn't really share my speech with a lot of people. I mean, my presentation, I shared the written version with the organization. They gave me some recommendations for edits. I shared it with, I have a speech writing friend. I gave them my speech. They made some suggestions. But in terms of my performance, it was just me videoing myself. And like you, I have experience speaking on stage, so I felt confident. But I love the idea of not just presenting to people, but presenting to speakers. I think that is a jewel. So for you new public speakers out there who want to get onto the TEDx stage, it's worth your time to consider joining an organization like Toastmasters. I love that suggestion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's okay to use different words like mom or mommy or things like that. It makes it even more natural because at the end of the day, what you're presenting is the message, not the script, right?
I love
The
that. That's a
script,
nugget.
yeah. Yeah, the script is just a guide for you to organize your ideas, which preferably these are ideas you're well familiar with, you know, and if they were to wake you up from sleep and say, you know, tell me about this idea, Damilare, what do you think it's importance of movement to our daily living? I can talk about that, right? And that should be the goal of anyone stepping on a TEDx stage is that you know your content enough to be able to talk about it when waking up from sleep.
That's good. Um, Tell me a little bit about your life after TEDx. Like, what kind of experience have you had since walking off of the red dot? Now that you're a TEDx speaker.
Absolutely. So a couple of things that came to mind. I want to make sure that we get to it, and then I'll talk about that.
Mhm.
Is earlier on you mentioned about different TEDx events having different status. Yes, that is true. And as a TEDx speaker, your audience is global. It's beyond the people in the room, right? So for the fact that that talk would end up on YouTube, or whatever other platform, that TEDx puts it on the TEDx page, you are exposed to the world. So focus on, I have an opportunity to speak and my message is going to reach a larger audience in the world. So absolutely, I wanted to emphasize that.
Good.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
life.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. C'est bon. C'est bon. Merci beaucoup.
Oui, de rien, de rien, de rien, avec plaisir. So that's one. So life after TEDx is as good as life. So TEDx was one of the, I would say, things that I did, which is part of my daily life. What do I mean by that? I was already speaking, teaching, coaching in my world. That TEDx became an additional step in spreading the message, right? So I already have a website, joyinsideout.com, where all my stuff is, right? I get invited to speak, at different events where I share this message and other ones similar, like inspirational leadership. So TEDx just gave an additional opportunity to spread the message. Now, I say that because I'm aware that for some people, TEDx is a strategic springboard to the next thing they're trying to launch or do, right? So it may be, okay, I'm taking my message from my local chapter to a bigger chapter. And then right after the TEDx, they put so much effort into publicizing the talk and getting it out there and spreading the message. Absolutely, yes, that's one way to do it. For me, it was also another fun thing to do.
Very nice.
And maybe also that's why it made it very comforting for me to do. It's like, oh, you want to do a TEDx? Yeah, sure. That sounds like a fun adventure. Let's do it. So that's it. So beyond TEDx, I'm still coaching. I have coaching clients. I'm still getting invited to speak at events. I love to be on stage and to communicate. And in particular, which is also connected to what I want to share about being a speaker in general, is that I always want to give people more than information. Mm-hmm. I want to give an experience, right? Because information is everywhere. You can search. I mean, everything I've said right now, if somebody puts the time to search on Google, research papers, documentary, they can find that. So it's not about information. However, that moment in time where we're together, that I'm sharing that information, I want to make it an experience for them. And what makes an experience is my story, right? Now, that's not what they're going to find in the research books. They're going to find that from me, right? My story, my emotional engagement, right? How I'm able to communicate or express my emotion through those words to connect with them. And of course, okay, this may be a little bit woo-woo. It's fine. I'm going to say it. It's it's the energy exchange too, right? So the energy of exchange of our interaction with each other in space, in time, in that moment, all matters. And that's uniquely you as a speaker, whoever is listening right now. Nobody else has that. That's your magic.
Man. Well, that was powerful, man. Listen, I want to make sure you have an opportunity to share any places that you'd like folks to go if they're interested in your coaching services or they just want to connect with you. The floor is yours.
Absolutely. So joy inside out. So joy, the emotion, inside, within, and out, outside. So joyinsideout.com. That's my website. There you find how to book me as a speaker, how to sign up to work with me as a coaching client. I also do movement classes every now and then, either as a workshop for corporate organizations, as a wellness program, or just for the group. So that is there as well too. I love to salsa dance. So if you're in the Tampa Bay area and you're out dancing, find me on the dance floor. I love to share that with you. I'm also on Instagram. Instagram is my name, Damilare _Adeyeri. So Damilare _Adeyeri, that's there. On YouTube as well, I have that. So I am Damilare Adeyeri on YouTube. So yeah, my name or my website, joyinsideout.com, is an easy way to find me. And definitely reach out. And if you're an up-and-coming speaker, you're looking for more tips, needing support, I'm always happy for you to contact me to pick my brain, right? This is not a coaching session, right? This is just like, hey, you've done this, you have any tip, idea, something that could help you in my journey, depending on my schedule, okay, I better be careful when I offer this. I may be happy to watch a video recording. So I'm offering this to your audience, right, Robin? I'm offering this to your audience. I'll be happy to watch a video of their speech recording and give a feedback on that too. How about that? Yeah.
That is an awesome, awesome gift. We're grateful for it. Well, listen, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your light with us today. We are super grateful. I do want to mention that this is season 1 of the show. So we're asking everyone who comes on, would you come back and visit us if we decided to run a season 2?
Yes, come back and visit us. And you didn't say it already, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Like, subscribe, and share this podcast with a friend.
OK, monsieur, c'est trop bon. Merci beaucoup. Au revoir.
Au revoir. Tout à l'heure. Merci, Robin.